Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at an extremely fun spice pick in the Open Master League, my newly built level 50 Shiny Raikou. Raikou is a pure electric type Pokemon with the moveset of Volt Switch, Wild Charge, and Shadow Ball. Raikou is not rated very highly for the Master League on PvPoke. There are a lot of common meta Pokemon that it struggles with. However, if you give a Wild Charge user like Raikou an energy lead, it can go absolutely off, including in one of these games, it 1v3s a team. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and check out Raikou in the Open Master League. Hopping into the first match, and we're off to a terrible start, leading Ho-Oh into Rayquaza. This team I've built is triple weak to Rayquaza, so seeing this Pokemon, I'm already in an absolutely terrible spot. They're going to fire off the Breaking Swipe, I'm going to farm up and go for the Sacred Fire. I'm hoping for an attack debuff and from a shield from my opponent. My opponent will commit a shield, and they're going for the Breaking Swipe before I'm able to make the Brave Bird. This is going to force a shield. I'm going to wait to make sure they don't switch and then fire off the Brave Bird. I don't really want to let myself get farmed down, so I am going to save switch into the Zekrom, but they have energy loaded. They can fire off the Breaking Swipe, and now I'm debuffed and I've taken so much damage. Opponent now going to send in Heatran, and I'm going to make sure to fire off the Fusion Bolt before they can make it to a charge move. Fusion Bolt is going to connect. Heatran farming up to the Stone Edge, although honestly at this point they can just go for the Magma Storm. I am definitely low enough, and now I'm in a really tough spot. I do still have Raikou and a shield, but I have 3 Pokemon that I have to get rid of. In comes Raikou. They're farming up with the Heatran and firing off their charge move. They are now 3 Fire Spins away from a Magma Storm. So I throw 2 Volt Switches, wait a turn, and get the catch onto Ho-Oh. Okay, this is step 1. Now I should be able to Volt Switch down. I need to exit this matchup with 100 energy if I want any chance of winning this game. They, of course, still have the Rayquaza. In the back, it's Solgaleo. I'm firing off the Shadow Ball. This will hit for massive, super effective damage onto the Solgaleo. In comes Rayquaza. Their energy dry. I overfarm as much as I can, and I'm firing off the Shadow Ball. This will KO the glassy Rayquaza. In comes Solgaleo. I make it to the Wild Charge. This has to KO. Come on, Raikou. Raikou gets the KO, and 1v3's a team to win the game. Moving into the next match, leading Ho-Oh into Zacian. These days, it's a pretty safe bet that any Zacian you see is going to be running the Wild Charge moveset, as instead of running Play Rough and Close Combat on the Zacian, the opponent could just run Xerneas, which does that coverage better. I wait a turn, try and go for a Wild Charge catch onto Zekrom, but my opponent demonstrates amazing patience. I will commit the shield, and they're not running Play Rough as their second charge move, they're running Close Combat. Really poor charge move timing there from me. I let an entire Snarl for free as I fire off the Fusion Bolt. They commit the shield, and now they can take advantage of the extra energy that I've given them. They fire off Close Combat number 1 and Close Combat number 2, and I'm in an interesting spot here. I decide to let this go, and now I'm going to send in Raikou. Raikou looking for the farm down and gets it. Raikou now with a big energy lead. The question is, what do they have in the back? They send in Metagross and they are weak. I'm firing off the Shadow Ball here. This will hit for massive super effective damage, and I need to throw another charge move before they make it to the Earthquake. I go for the Shadow Ball, but they CMP tie. This is not an Earthquake. That's actually a really heads-up play by my opponent, CMP tying with a Meteor Mash, understanding that that's what I would throw to try and deny their energy. But in the back, they have Yveltal, and they are so weak to Raikou. Oh my goodness. And now Raikou is going to look to farm up to the back-to-back Wild Charges here. And the nice thing is, I also have a move on Ho-Oh. So at this point, this game is over. I just have way too much energy. The opponent recognizes that fact, and they just let the Wild Charge take the win. We see a tricky lead in the next match, Ho-Oh into Landorus. I'm going to save switch into Zekrom. Zekrom will immediately be met with a superpower from the Landorus, but Landorus is a massive issue for this team. They go for the superpower. They're now going to send in Zacian. I'm farming up and firing off the Fusion Bolt before they're able to make it to a Play Rough. Fusion Bolt will be no-shielded by the Zacian. Zacian farming up, and they throw just before I make it to the Fusion Bolt. Very unfortunate for me, and they go for the Close Combat. I'm going to send in Ho-Oh. Slightly inaccurate charge move timing there from my opponent. They will fire off the Wild Charge. They're heavily debuffed, and I will get the farm down. I leave with a move loaded. In comes the Landorus, and I'm going for the Sacred Fire here. Fishing for a debuff, if at all possible. Sacred Fire does get the debuff. That's huge. They're firing off the charge move here. This is a tough call to make. I decide to commit the shield. They end up baiting with a superpower, and in the back, they have Yveltal. Oh my goodness, I'm going for the Sacred Fire here. Sacred Fire is shielded. In comes Raikou, and it's time for Raikou to shine. They're firing off the charge move here. It is the Dark Pulse, and that's perfectly fine. Raikou farming up and firing off the Wild Charge. Wild Charge will be massive damage, KOing that Yveltal. Back in comes the Landorus. Landorus can fire off the superpower, but I still have one shield remaining. They actually go for the Stone Edge, not wanting to debuff themselves, but even though they're non-debuffed, Shadow Ball will still be able to give me the win. We see a bit of a tough lead in the next match, Ho-Oh into Mewtwo. Mewtwo is a very uncomfortable Pokemon to deal with in neutral matchups. It's one of the reasons why I do like running the Breaking Swipe users so much, as the Breaking Swipe users are some of the few Pokemon that can actually deal with Mewtwo in an even shield situation. Brave Bird will be shielded. I'm going to save switch into the Zekrom, and they have so much energy loaded. They fire off the Side Strike. That does massive damage. I'm farming up with the Zekrom. Zekrom going for the Fusion Bolt, but it's a CMP tie. Very nice overfarm by my opponent. They go for the Side Strike, and I'm going to fire off the Fusion Bolt here. Fusion Bolt would easily KO the Mewtwo, and they actually let the Mewtwo go. That was a bit of a surprise, and now they send in Dialga. Dialga gets the farm down. I'm bringing in Ho-Oh, and I need this Ho-Oh to get rid of the Dialga. Dialga has a lot of energy here. I will commit the shield. Is it the Draco Meteor? Yes, it is. That's a big shield. I continue to farm with the Ho-Oh, and I'm firing off the Sacred Fire. This will hit for massive damage. Opponent is going to commit the shield. I get the attack debuff. I'm farming up, and I'm just going for the Brave Bird here. It's resisted, but I need whatever damage I can get onto the Dialga. Brave Bird gets the KO. In the back, it's Xerneas, and Xerneas will be answered with Raikou. Raikou is going to be hit with a Moonblast here. Moonblast hitting for big neutral damage. I'm farming up with the Raikou to the back-to-back Wild Charges here. Wild Charge number 1, of course, not going to get the KO, but I'm able to fire off Wild Charge number 2. That's going to KO the Xerneas, and that's a good game. We see mirror leads in the next game, Ho-Oh versus Ho-Oh. I have 2 better responses in the back, so I am going to save switch into Zekrom. My opponent is now going to respond with a Lugia. Lugia, definitely not a typical response to a Zekrom save switch. Lugia is going to be firing off the Sky Attack. That's going to connect. I'm farming up and going for the Fusion Bolt. Fusion Bolt is going to hit for massive super effective damage. We see the shield from the Lugia. I'm farming up here. Unfortunately, again, end up throwing on alignment. I'm not sure if I was just off on my timings today or if it was frame drops, but either way, really poor charge move timing in these battles. Definitely not what I would hope to see. They're going to be firing off the Sky Attack. That's going to connect, and now I'm going for the farm down in the back. It's Rayquaza, and I'm going for the Brave Bird here. Rayquaza, again, is a massive issue as it beats the entire team, but they shield the Brave Bird, and I'm debuffed. I can't make it to the Brave Bird, and now I have to send in the Raikou. And despite the fact that they have 3 flying types, I'm going to lose because my team cannot handle Rayquaza whatsoever. Rayquaza now has the Raikou double debuffed. I'm farming up with the Raikou. My only hope is that Wild Charge somehow KOs here, but I know it does not. I'm 2 stages debuffed, and I resign the match. I'm looking for redemption as I lead into another Ho-Oh. I save switch into the Zekrom. Opponent is going to respond with the Xerneas. I'm farming up and going for the Fusion Bolt here. Fusion Bolt will deal quite a lot of damage to this Xerneas. Xerneas is going to let that through. Xerneas continuing to farm. In this moment, I decide that I actually want to try and get a shield back, so I will commit the shield. I'm farming up, going for the Fusion Bolt. Again, not great charge move timing in these battles. Oh my goodness, watching this back is hurting me. And from here, I'm just going to let this go. This is farm down range for Ho-Oh, and I can use this as an opportunity because Ho-Oh does wall Xerneas' common moveset to get a big energy lead on Ho-Oh and potentially Brave Bird or Sacred Fire, whatever comes in. They're going to fire off the close combat here. That is, of course, going to be resisted, but they're able to make it to a second close combat as well. Again, I'm just going to tank this, and I get the farm down. They're going to send back in their Ho-Oh, and I'm going to be firing off the Brave Bird here. Brave Bird is going to deal big damage. I send in Raikou, and it's a simultaneous switch. Raikou into Zacian. Zacian farming up. I can tank whatever they throw here. Snarl does not do a lot of damage. They're going to go for the Play Rough. I'm going to throw one more Volt Switch, and I'm at the back-to-back Wild Charges here. Let's put some pressure onto this Zacian. Wild Charge will connect. That does quite a lot of damage. They're firing off a charge move, and I'm committing the shield, and I'm looking for the Volt Switch farm down. They go for the cheaper Wild Charge, hoping they can make it to a second charge move, but they cannot. And I have the back-to-back moves here. They have to hope that this Incinerate will KO. Wild Charge gets shielded, and it does not. Level 50 Raikou hanging on with a sliver of HP and takes down Ho-Oh from the sky. We move into the next match, leading into, you guessed it, yet another Ho-Oh. Same game plan as before. I save switch into the Zekrom. In comes a Dragon Tail Groudon. So I absolutely had to bait this thing out, as this would absolutely crush my Raikou in the back. They shield up the Outrage, and that's going to allow them to get a massive farm down here. That is quite unfortunate. I'm going to be waiting the timer and sending in Ho-Oh and looking for an Incinerate farm down. Opponent is going to throw one Dragon Tail and the move, and I'm going to let this through. Everything they throw is single resisted, but Precipice Blades is just an absurdly strong move. Again, very nice charge move timing here from my opponent. I'm going to commit the shield on the Precipice Blades because I think 2 Incinerates will KO, but it doesn't. The Groudon lives on 1 HP, and I've made a serious miscalculation. Fire Punch is now going to get me low, and I don't think I'm going to be able to make the back-to-back moves versus their Ho-Oh. I'm going to go for the Sacred Fire here. I'm hoping for an attack debuff to allow me to live the next Incinerate. Sacred Fire will be no shielded, no attack debuff. I do not make the move. In comes Raikou. It's Dialga in the back, and I resign the match. We see a Nightmare lead in the next match. Ho-Oh into Dragonite. Again, building a team around a spicier Pokemon, oftentimes you'll end up with a very unbalanced team, and this is definitely one of those teams, as just any Dragon Flying type just tears this team to shreds. I farm up past the Brave Bird. I'm going for the Sacred Fire here, hoping for the shield, but the opponent is going to let that through. I'm going to switch into Zekrom. Opponent is now going to send in Excadrill. Oh boy, this is absolutely terrible. Excadrill is going to fire off the Drill Run. That does massive damage. I'm able to make it to the Outrage. Outrage will not KO, but it does a lot of resisted damage. Exca is going to let that through, and I'm going to get the farm down. Back in comes Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh cannot get the farm down before the Rock Slide is reached. I will commit the shield, as I do have some energy here, and energy on Ho-Oh is pretty useful. In comes the Dragonite. I'm firing off the Brave Bird. Brave Bird into the Dragonite. Will be shielded. I switch into Raikou. In the back, it's a Metagross. And this might actually be doable. I'm farming up and firing off the Shadow Ball. This will hit for massive super effective damage into the Metagross. So Metagross is going to commit a shield. I continue to farm with the Raikou. Opponent is going to bait with the Meteor Mash. I'm looking to overfarm as much as I can, but they don't go for the Earthquake. They just go for the Meteor Mash. Meteor Mash does quite a lot of damage. I'm farming up to 100 energy here. At the very least, this way I get to leave with a Wild Charge. It forces the Dragonite to throw right away, which they do not. Opponent tries to go for the farm, not realizing I have the back-to-back moves on the Raikou, and Raikou is able to take the win. We see a great lead in the final match. Ho-Oh into Solgaleo. My opponent safe switches into Kyurem, and it looks like I'm actually playing against one of my own teams here. There's going to be a Rayquaza in the back, and as we know from previous games, Dragon Flying types are a huge issue for this team. I'm going to be shielding up the Glaciate, firing off the Fusion Bolt, and getting a shield from my opponent. I don't really need Switch Advantage here. Switch Advantage doesn't do a lot for me. What I need realistically is an energy advantage. So I'm going to send in the Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh is able to get farmed. In comes Rayquaza, and I'm firing off the Brave Bird. Brave Bird will hit massive damage onto Rayquaza. Rayquaza is going to commit the shield. I continue to farm with the Ho-Oh, but perfect charge move timing from my opponent, throwing the move just before I make it to the Brave Bird. I'm going to wait a turn, watch to make sure they don't catch onto the Solgaleo, and I'm going to fire off the Brave Bird. That connects. In comes the Raikou. Opponent is going to send back in the Solgaleo, and I need this Shadow Ball to hit for some massive damage. They're going to fire off the Iron Head. Iron Head the stronger move, but it is going to be resisted, and I'm going for the Shadow Ball here. I've done some Volt Switch damage. Is this enough enough to KO. No, Solgaleo hangs on. I'm forced to throw another charge move, and that is really unfortunate, as that means it's probably going to be game over here. In comes Rayquaza, and Rayquaza has energy. Oh no. And the dragon flying types are just proving so difficult for this team as we lose that game. All in all, I had a ton of fun getting to run my newly built shiny Raikou. Raikou is insanely fun to run. As we saw in the sets, there's some games where it can just take over if you have like perfect energy management, but other games where unfortunately it can just feel a little bit like dead weight, especially going up against something like a Rayquaza or a Dialga, where it just gets absolutely overrun by that dragon damage. But all in all, a Pokemon that I'm very happy that I was able to build to level 50, as it's a pretty solid raid attacker, and honestly, I had a lot of fun getting to run it. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.